It's beginning to look a lot like Christmas for us draft nerds. It's draft day today, April the 28th. And this is the day that we've all been waiting for as college football fans that also like to scout or, like to watch film and things like that. This is what we've been anticipating. And so I'm not going to overtalk it. I'm going to jump right into the final mock draft. Of course, using the PFF simulator here. And this mock draft is going to be based solely on what I've heard about like medical issues with the players and how teams are thinking and what they want to do and things like that. And so this mock draft is going to be a little bit crazy because it's going to be the one that's most like the actual NFL draft. So at pick one, nothing is changing for me. I still do not believe that Travon Walker is going to be the number one pick. Until Roger Goodell says it, I won't believe it. So I'm going to go ahead and select Aiden Hutchinson. You don't bet on traits at the number one pick. You bet on the guy that's already good, that's already showed you that he was good. And that's why I take Aiden Hutchinson. But as far as the Lions go, for the Lions, what I'm going to do for the Lions is I have to think like these teams. So I'm going to buy into the Travon Walker hype. Because again, you're betting on the traits. And I think for Dan Campbell, he's that kind of guy. He's that kind of player who would love to play for Dan Campbell, who plays with a lot of passion, who cares about football. And I think he's going to be a good player. I just don't know if he's going to be number two pick good, personally. So Travon Walker is going to go to the Lions. At pick three, though, pick three is going to be a little bit different than before. So pick three, it's going to be BPA, basically. And for me, when I look at the Texans, offensive line, you're kind of solidified at left tackle. Not kind of, you are. You have Jonathan Grenard, who got quite a few sacks rushing the passer last year, but you have no corners and you have no safeties. So at pick three, what we're going to do is we're going to actually select Sauce Gardner. So Sauce is going to go to Houston because you don't really have any commitments tied into Desmond King or Steven Nelson after 2023. So just get you a lockdown corner and just prosper because Sauce is going to be a lockdown corner. So you get the pick four. And much like these other picks, it's BPA. The Jets solidify themselves with signing John Franklin Myers to that 4-year extension, who, by the way, is a very underrated player in the NFL, and he doesn't really get talked about, which is insane to me. But I think Kayvon Thibodeau will end up with the New York Jets. And if he didn't go to the Jets, he would go to the Giants at 5. So he was going to New York either way, in my opinion. The only knock on him is that sometimes he takes plays off. That's what they say, or sometimes he has an ego about him, and it's I don't really care about ego. Do you like football? Like if we're at the point with Kayvon Thibodeau where he doesn't love the game of football, then that's a different conversation. But if someone walks in and they're cocky or they're confident, I don't care. Deion Sanders was 21 years old saying, "I got gold on my chain. Look like I'm wearing my signing bonus." Like, I would have asked for so much money from Detroit, they would have had to put me on layaway. In his 20s, right? That's cocky. That's confident. If you love the game of football, you can back that up. I believe Kayvon Thibodeau loves the game of football, and that's why I think he's still going to be a top 5 pick. So Kayvon Thibodeau goes to the New York Jets. At 5, the Giants are probably doing backflips here because they get the pick of the litter of the offensive lineman. And for me, I still believe that Ike Ekwonu is going to be the best offensive lineman prospect. You're going to pair him up opposite Andrew Thomas. And you're going to have one of the strongest set of tackles in the league. And that's what you need. If you believe Daniel Jones is your guy, then you need to get him some protection to keep him upright. You got him some weapons last year. Kenny Galladay had no touchdowns, but you got him some weapons last year. You drafted Kadarius Toney. And so you're really trying to build around Daniel Jones, and now let's solidify that protection as well so you can see if he's actually your guy going into the future. So the New York Giants are going to select Ike Ekwonu. At pick 6, the Panthers are going to be on the clock here. And Scott Fitterer saying that, they like quarterbacks that they see at 6 and things like that. They have too much capital tied up into Sam Darnold. I just don't get why they did what they did with Sam Darnold, right? Like I understand, like, you want to take a chance on him. That's fine. But you ain't got to be out here committing your life to him like you're getting married. Like, oh, we're going to do this and get your 5th-year option, and we're going to talk about it. Nah. Just see if he can play. Do it the way the Commanders did it with Carson Wentz. Okay, let's see. Let's go year by year. Let's see how you do. If you stink, you stink, right? But the Panthers are so tied up in the Sam Darnold that it's just, at this point, like, you have to start building around him. Because what are you going to do? Take another quarterback, sit Sam Darnold that you gave him all those picks for, that you flipped the 5th-year option for? That makes no sense. Get him some protection. Solidify your left tackle spot, the one you've been trying to solidify for the last decade. So I'm going to actually give them Charles Cross and not Evan Neal. We'll talk about that in a few picks. So at pick 7, the Giants are going to be on the clock here. And you're in a division with Devonte Smith, CeeDee Lamb, Terry McLaurin, Michael Gallup, and whomever Washington picks at 11. Right, and I guess Kadarius Toney if he doesn't get traded, right? You need a lockdown corner, right? And looking at the cap hits for Bradbury and Adoree Jackson over the next few years, they're $19 million and $21 million, individually. That's not going to work for your team, right? So you got to get younger and you got to get cheaper. And so I think what happens is the New York Giants will actually select Derek Stingley Jr. and solidify their cornerback position after missing on DeAndre Baker a few years ago. They'll get their guy, and he'll actually be a lockdown corner as long as he stays healthy. So we get to pick 8. It's going to be the Atlanta Falcons. I usually have the Falcons taking Drake London here, but I really believe teams are going to lean towards. I'm sorry, usually have them taking Garrett Wilson. Excuse me, but I usually believe that teams will go for the bigger receiver, the tower, the guy that's super athletic, can go over the top of you, things like that. And so I think for Atlanta specifically, in the way Arthur Smith runs his offense with how he ran it in Tennessee with guys like A.J. Brown, who are bigger receivers, I think you kind of need to look towards that direction. And then you look at the general manager as well, who had spent time in New Orleans prior to that, where they were very big on these taller receivers. And I think a good comp for Drake London is Michael Thomas, right? So I would actually go Drake London here. So we get to pick 9. And I mentioned Evan Neal, right? Because now some medical stuff has come out about Evan Neal where we could see a little bit of a slide, right? And it's always tricky when these things come out because a lot of times we don't find out till after the draft. Like I remember last year, Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah from I believe it was the linebacker from Notre Dame, if I remember correctly. People were mocking him in the first round. And all of a sudden, Jamin Davis goes before him. And it's like, oh, well, what's going on? And then you find out JOK has some medical issues that we didn't know about, right? So that's the tricky part of the draft. But some things have leaked out about Evan Neal and his medical issues and things like that. And so I think he's going to slide a little bit. He's too good to slide out of the top 10, in my opinion. And I think if he's there when Seattle's on the clock, to hell with the quarterback, get the left tackle. It's okay. You're going to be fine. You can get the left tackle, forget the quarterback this year, and just stink and draft next year. It's not like you're going to win this year. Not in that division. Not with those quarterbacks. Not with Drew Lock and Geno Smith. You're not going to win. It's okay. Rebuild. Start with the left tackle. Thank me later. So, the Seahawks are going to take Evan Neal. So we get to pick 10. The Jets still need to get weapons for Zach Wilson. So what they're going to do is they're going to actually draft Garrett Wilson. He's electric with the ball in his hands. Get it to him in space, behind the line of scrimmage, just anywhere. Drake London, of course, would have been the choice for me, but he's gone already. So we're going to start the Wilson to Wilson connection in East Rutherford and Prosper. Pair Garrett Wilson up with Elijah Moore and Corey Davis, and hopefully, fingers crossed, Denzel Mims can get it together as well. And you have a really good set of pass catchers. Seriously. It's crazy. So we get to pick 11 here. And I think with the 3 receivers going, or with the 2 receivers going already, with Drake London and Garrett Wilson, the Washington Commanders are going to pass on Kyle Hamilton, and they're going to get their receiver. And I actually believe that they're going to take Jamison Williams, right? So Jamison Williams tore his ACL. It's not like he had a Jalen Smith injury, right? Like, it's an ACL tear. And Michael Gallup just got paid off an ACL tear, right? So, like, teams look at ACL tears. I believe, like any other injury, okay, it's going to take you some time to recover, but you're going to be fine, right? So, for me, I'm looking at it as if Jamison Williams is healthy. And if he was healthy, I would have him going in the 8 to 11 range anyway, right? So I don't believe an ACL is going to drop him all the way down to the draft, all the way down to the bottom of the first round and things like that. I still think he can go top 10, honestly. I think he's that good. 9 touchdowns over 40 yards, 19.9 per reception on 79 receptions. I don't see a big slide happening personally. And I think that the Commanders would be a great spot for him because they need offensive weapons for Carson Wentz. You need everything for Carson Wentz because it's Carson Wentz. So here's where the draft is going to get a little bit funky, right? Because a couple weeks ago, Jerry Jones made a comment and he said, yeah, we're thinking about trading up. And you're like, oh, it's Jerry Jones, whatever. And then things begin to leak out from people that everybody trusts, that the Cowboys are feverishly trying to trade up, right? So I believe the Cowboys are trying to come up for 3 players, and 2 of those players are already gone, right? So they're trying to come up for Charles Cross out of Mississippi State, 30 visit for the Cowboys. They want to plug him in at left guard, flex him out the left tackle when Tyron Smith is done. That's one. The second person, Drake London. The third one, Chris Olave. All 30 visits. For those of you that don't know, 30 visit means 30. It's a team can get 30 visits from players that are eligible for the draft. So you take that time to interview these guys or work these guys out and get one-on-one time with these players. And a lot of teams bring a certain amount of players in. They're bringing 30. And they'll pick from that set of 30. And that'll be a lot of the people that they get in their draft class, right? So, like, for example, the Cowboys in particular, outside of CeeDee Lamb, which was the COVID draft, and Morris Claiborne in 2012, all their first-round picks have been draft visits, right? So they're really big on getting this interaction with these prospects. And I think for the Cowboys, you are in a dangerous position right now at receiver. It doesn't like the blessing it did last year because Michael Gallup's coming off an ACL tear, so he won't be ready for week 1. CeeDee Lamb, the Dallas Cowboys are a CeeDee Lamb injury away from James Washington, Simi Fehoko, and Noah Brown being their starting receiving core. That's not acceptable. It's not, and that's why the Cowboys are wanting to trade up, right? You can't. You released Amari Cooper because of how much money he was making, not because he was a bad player, right? You acknowledge that you have a big hole. You got to go get a receiver. And I think the Cowboys are gonna go here. So I think the Cowboys are gonna come up from 24. Of course, I have to force this trade because apparently I don't want to trade with myself. But they're gonna go 24, 56, 24 and 56 for 12. So you're going to have to give your second round pick to get your receiver, right? Which I believe the Cowboys will do. They're willing to do it now, right? They just have to find the right team. And I'm really believing that you're looking at Minnesota, Houston, and Baltimore. Because if the Eagles get to 15 and Chris Olave is there, they're taking Chris Olave. Absolutely. And they should, because it's Chris Olave, right? Like, you don't stop passing on good players. So you want to get ahead of the Eagles if you're the Cowboys. So I'm going to go ahead and force this particular trade here. And the Cowboys are going to come up to get their receiver. They're going to come up to get Chris Olave. So the Cowboys land Chris Olave. So at pick 13, the Texans are doing backflips here because they're going to go ahead and steal Kyle Hamilton. So as I said before, Kyle Hamilton is just a bad test taker. Doesn't mean he's a bad player. He's an incredible player. He can play center field. He can come down, stop the run. He can cover tight ends. He can cover running backs. He can do it all. He's just a terrible test taker, like me, right? So doesn't mean I'm not smart. It just means I'm not a good test taker. I don't thrive in those situations, right? And that's Kyle Hamilton. But you draft Kyle Hamilton, and then you add a little bit of sauce to your defense, and you fix your secondary in Houston that quickly. It's that easy. Come on, Nick Caserio. Work your magic. So at pick 14 is going to be the Ravens. Jordan Davis is the popular pick here, and I'm going to actually give them Jordan Davis just because, I don't really see him sliding. I had him going all the way down to like 28 and 2.0. I don't think that's believable. I just think he's too athletic to slide that far. I think he goes to Baltimore at 14. It's hard to, like I said, it's hard to pass up his potential. But Baltimore had a really good run defense as well last year. And Davis is just gonna be the cherry on top, to just wreak havoc in the middle of the defensive line, and that's gonna be great for them. Hopefully, it'll get them deeper into the playoffs. Especially with Lamar Jackson. But they did re-sign Michael Pierce, so I know some people are going to be like, "Well, we re-signed Michael Pierce, so what's the point? You don't want two Michael Pierces? Is that how you say it? You don't want two of the same players in the middle of your defense to shut the run down? What are you complaining for? That's great. Get you another fat guy just to eat up space, to shut down the run. Let those edge rushers get up in there to get those tackles for loss and to get those sacks. That's what you want. You want a Michael Pierce and a Jordan Davis. That's what you want. I think it's a good pick at 14. It's a good value pick as well. At 15, nothing changes here for the Eagles. They go ahead and they snag Trent McDuffie here, get their corner. As I said, just short arms. That's the only thing working against him, in my opinion. I've seen him track the ball all the way down the field, intercept the ball. He's flexible enough and loose enough to open up his hips on dig routes and deep overs and things like that. I think he's a very good corner, and I think if he had arms that were like 2 more inches, he'd probably be up there with Derek Stingley Jr. and Sauce Gardner in terms of being picked in the top 10. Absolutely. So at pick 16, we're going to have a trade here, right? So what's going to happen is the New England Patriots are actually going to come up. And so what the Patriots are going to do is they're going to send 21 and they're going to send 85 for 16 to New Orleans. So we're going to force this trade through here. And the New England Patriots are going to be on the clock. And they're going to look at wide receiver. And they're going to get Treylon Burks. You've had Chris Olave, Jameson Williams, Garrett Wilson, and Drake London go in the top 12 of the draft. If you are New England or LA or, Green Bay, Buffalo, Tennessee, you got to go get Treylon Burks at that point. And New England was willing to go do it. It's about getting weapons around Mac Jones. Like, Mac Jones got you to the playoffs. He's not a bad quarterback. I talked about how much I liked him in mock drafts last year as well. But nobody really believed me, so, but he goes on to make the playoffs in New England with no weapons. Give him some weapons and he can be even more successful, I believe. So at pick 17, the Chargers are going to be on the clock here, and the Chargers have none of the tackles. They have none of their receivers, so they're going to bail. They're going to trade. So they're actually going to trade with the Pittsburgh Steelers here. The Steelers are going to give up 20 and 84 to get the 17, right? Because the Steelers want to jump New Orleans, because the Steelers want a quarterback and they want to be able to pick the first one, right? So we're going to offer this trade. They're going to accept the trade. The Steelers are going to be on the clock here, and the Steelers are going to pick a big arm quarterback who can go out there, brave those elements, get the ball down the field, and a quarterback that they have been been open about, that they have told the world about, that they love. They think he is great. They really enjoyed meeting with him, and that quarterback is Malik Willis. I still believe Malik Willis is the best quarterback in the entire draft, personally. I get the connection to Pittsburgh with Kenny Pickett, and I get the connection to like David Tepper with the Carolina pick as well for Kenny Pickett. But I'm drafting good players, not players that know people or know locations. I'm drafting the best player, and that's Malik Willis, personally. I think he's a better passer. I just think he's a better prospect. I think he has a higher ceiling than Kenny Pickett. And so I think he'll actually thrive in a location like Pittsburgh. And he may not even have to start immediately because they signed Mitchell Trubisky to that 2-year deal. So at pick 18, the Eagles. So the Eagles, George Karloftis is very tempting, and so is Devin Lloyd. Kyle Hamilton would have been tempting here as well. Just because you have like Kayvon Wallace and Anthony Harris at safety. So safety would have been tempting here, but there's no safety that I would take at 18 at this point. So what I'm actually going to look towards is more so the defensive line for the Eagles. So it's a little bit early for Travis Jones and Logan Hall. And wow, Perion Winfrey is ranked 84th. That's crazy. Okay. Anyway, but that's way too low. But the Eagles are actually going to look at interior defensive line. And so we're actually going to look at Devonte Wyatt here. He was a 30 visit for the Eagles as well, so I know that there's strong interest there. And he projects as a 3-tech, and his measurables, ironically, are almost identical to Fletcher Cox coming out of Mississippi State. And so Fletcher Cox was cut and then re-signed to a deal with the Eagles, but he's gotten up there in age, and I think it's time to prepare for his replacement. To cover yourself. So I'm gonna go ahead and draft Devonte Wyatt to slide in once Fletcher Cox is done, probably after this season, and just thrive. Because Devonte Wyatt is a very good player, and I think 3-tech is going to be his best position. On a tangent though, the lack of attention that's been given to Fletcher Cox is insane. Like when you think about like the best defensive tackles in the league, like no one's ever mentioned Fletcher Cox. And then that's so disrespectful because nobody talks about him like he's a dominant defensive tackle. And he was just a Pro Bowler 2 seasons ago. He doesn't suck. He's a 6-time Pro Bowler, 4-time All-Pro, All-Decade, future Hall of Fame defensive tackle. And I've never heard anyone mention him up there with the dominant defensive tackles, and I don't understand why. He's a really good player. He's going to the Hall of Fame because he's all decade. He's damn sure going to the Hall of Fame. He's had a great career, but I think you got to prepare for the end of that, and that's going to be Devonte Wyatt. So at pick 19, the New Orleans Saints are going to get their offensive tackle here. They're going to actually select Trevor Penning. As I said, he's a flexible prospect who can line up at guard and center. I still project him more as a guard, but I think he can definitely flex out the left tackle to replace Teron Armstead. Bad footwork at times, but outside of that, I think he's very physical. I think that's what the Saints need on their offensive line. So at pick 20, It's going to be the Los Angeles Chargers after trading. And the reason the Chargers traded was because they felt like we could pick up more capital and still get the player we wanted. So they got an additional 3rd round pick and they still get Zion Johnson, right? So Zion Johnson has position flex at tackle and guard. Hell, he even plays center. Hands are never out of place. Doesn't overextend. He does it against good talent. Great technique. Thrives as a pass blocker. He's plug and play, right? And I think for the Chargers, you need a flexible offensive lineman who can do a lot of different things, and that's Zion Johnson. So at pick 21, the New Orleans Saints are going to be on the clock here, and they are going to still get the guy that they wanted. You're still going to get their quarterback. They did pick up an additional pick after moving down as well, but they're going to get Kenny Pickett, who I had going to them, last year or last mock draft in 3.0. So he's a 4-year starter, all-time leading passer at Pitt. He does a good job when pressure's around him. He has little hands, and I think he's going to fumble the ball a lot, especially in the elements, because in the NFL, I was watching Hey Rookie, Welcome to the NFL, right? And they were talking to Evan Neal about like pass rushers, and the guy, I'm not sure who the guy was, but he was talking about how like guys like Von Miller are quick and they dip. Like every player is not going to hit the quarterback, right? Because that doesn't really matter, right? Like if you're a quarterback with smaller hands, Von Miller's going to dip his shoulder, go as low as possible and bend and swipe that ball right out of your hand. That's what Von Miller does. That's what NFL pass rushers do. They don't just go to try to wrap you up and take you down. No, they're going for the ball because that's what matters, right? And so if you think back to Aaron Rodgers, for example, Aaron Rodgers is a very good example. Remember the playoff game where Aaron Rodgers beat the Cowboys, not in Green Bay, but in Dallas, where he threw that sidearm pass to Jared Cook on the sideline. Well, the play before that, Aaron Rodgers got sacked, but because his hands are so big, he held on to the football, right? And he would have turned it over and the Cowboys would have won. But because he could grip the football with no issues, he was fine. I think for Kenny Pickett, plays like that are going to happen and he's going to fumble. And I think that's something you're going to have to live with. But outside of that, he's a very good prospect. And I think he's going to be a first-round player. You signed Jameis Winston to a 2-year deal. Who cares? It's not anything against Jameis Winston, but you're not stopping me from taking a franchise quarterback. You're not stopping me, and neither is Mitch Trubisky in Pittsburgh. I'm taking the best player. Y'all notice the theme here? Best player. Don't draft for need. Draft the best player. I promise you, your team will be in a lot better shape if you do. So the Packers are going to be on the clock here at 22. And they are actually going to get Jermaine Johnson. Now, in the previous mock, I had the Packers taking Jordan Davis because of their run defense. But Jordan Davis is long gone. So they're still going to draft in the front of the defensive line. Get an edge rusher, someone who can set the edge, stop the run, still get after the quarterback is a very powerful rusher who really improved after transferring from Georgia. Kind of raw when it comes to pass rush moves. You can coach that up if you're a good defensive coach. But I think he fits the Packers perfectly, and you need to continue to get after quarterbacks in the NFC South or in the NFC North, and stop the run. That's very key for the Packers to have any kind of success in the playoffs. Stop the run, and you'll be okay. So, pick 23, it's going to be the Arizona Cardinals, and they actually flipped the 5th-year option on Kyler Murray, I believe, on Wednesday. And if you're going to do that, protect him, right? Like, I know people media scouts will say, well, they can take a receiver here. They can take it. Absolutely not. Absolutely. It doesn't matter who you take at receiver if the quarterback can't stay upright. So for me, I'm drafting Kenyon Green. You need to get more physical on your offensive line. Someone that will sling a defender that tries to go after your quarterback. Now, he did have a lot of penalties in college. Clean up his hands, and he'll be fine. But he is a mauler. Plug him in beside Rodney Hudson. To hell with Justin Pugh. Plug Kenyon Green in at left guard. Day one, you're going to have a quarterback that's staying upright. You want to pay him, keep him healthy. You can't pay him and then not put anybody around him. You in these last few drafts, you've taken the Zaven Collins and the Isaiah Simmons, and it's like you protect your quarterback. Get things for your quarterback. And there you go. You get your offensive lineman. So at pick 24, after Minnesota traded down with Dallas, Minnesota is going to get George Karloftis. Both the corners were gone by the time Minnesota got on the clock, and that's why they moved. So, as I said about Karloftis, explosive off the edge, small arms, ain't really athletic, but you can see the ability. You can see the talent. You just need a coach to help mold it and to kind of push him in the right direction. But he can get after the quarterback with his little bit of pass rush moves that he only knows. There's only a few, so you can count them on one hand. But he can get after the quarterback. He can get after the quarterback. He can affect the game. He can get his hands up. He can get pass deflection. He can probably get interceptions at this point. Like he's everywhere. Just when you think you got him, he's not going to do anything. Your quarterback throws the ball, it gets swatted. You're like, well, damn. He didn't get the pressure, but he got the pass deflection. That's what he is. That's the kind of player you want. That's heart. That's hustle. That's what teams want. I think he's going to fit perfectly with this Minnesota team. Minnesota did sign Zadarius Smith, but they were trying to trade Neal Hunter before paying him his $18 million roster bonus. But I still think even with the Neal Hunter, you still got to get better on the defense. And it was either going to be edge rusher or it was going to be corner. So the corners were gone, so we moved, and we still got an edge rusher. So at pick 25, we have the Buffalo Bills here. And so I actually believe the Buffalo Bills are actually going to move from this pick, right? So what we're going to do is we're actually going to have the Green Bay Packers jump up from 28 with Buffalo. Just 3 spots. They're going to give up 28, and they give up 132 for 25. And we want to do that because they're looking at receiver and they want to get ahead of Tennessee, who could potentially want a receiver. So we're going to force this trade here, of course. And the Packers are going to be on the clock here. And the Packers are going to select Jahan Dotson, who is an absolute weapon. I mean, just can catch the ball literally anywhere. 10 touchdowns over 40 yards in his career. He's not quite Tyreek Hill, but, he has some great hands. He can catch anything. He'll go over the top of you, and he's only like 5'11", right? Get him the ball. He can house it from anywhere. He can house it from behind the line of scrimmage, over the middle, down the field, down the street. It doesn't matter. Give him the ball. He'll score a touchdown. He's that kind of weapon. And I think putting him with a quarterback like Aaron Rodgers is going to be dangerous for the rest of the NFL. But I did want to talk about George Pickens, right? Because if you're a draft nerd, right, you know that George Pickens has the ability to be a first round pick, right? But players like George Pickens get on my nerves, right? Because going into the draft season, right, after the national championship and things like that, George Pickens had the opportunity to speak to teams and work out and do all these kinds of things. And teams had already felt that he was immature, and it didn't really improve, right? So players in this time from the end of college football to the draft, what you're supposed to do is improve your stock. But George Pickens, I believe, hurt his, right? Because George Pickens would be a first round pick if he wasn't so immature, right? And you add the immaturity on with the fact that he didn't interview well with teams, makes me feel pretty confident that he's not going in the first round of the draft, right? And I don't know where he would go. I know that I wouldn't take him. I do believe in drafting good players, but for me, if I'm a GM or an owner, I'm questioning whether or not this dude loves football, right? Because you have been giving opportunity after opportunity to help improve your draft stock, and you somehow made it worse. Like at that point, I'm questioning, like, do you enjoy football, or are you Kyrie Irving, Ben Simmons, and you're just good at it, and you like all the things that come with football, but you don't want to do it? It was a really big disappointment for me to see how badly he interviewed, or to hear people talk about how badly he interviewed, because it's your opportunity to be open and honest. And even then, if you don't want to be honest, lie. Lie and try to convince GMs and owners and scouts and coaches that you have changed or that you have improved. You didn't even lie. You didn't even try. And that's frustrating. Like, because he's a good player. And George Pickens going to a quarterback like Aaron Rodgers would be incredible. But Aaron Rodgers ain't going to have, he's not going to be dealing with anybody like George Pickens, right? So I think he really hurt himself. And I hope that this particular situation opens his eyes, because you not being mature and not preparing for interviews cost you millions of dollars. It's not like you had to go out here and do something different on the field. You just had to talk, be honest, be open. And he couldn't do that. I know I went off on a little tangent, but I don't like players like that. Because then I begin to question, do you actually like this? Like, do you want to do this? It's very frustrating. So at pick 26, though, we're going to have the Tennessee Titans on the clock here. And as I said before, the Titans have had a bunch of different issues with their offensive line, just with players not being able to stay healthy. With Dylan Radunz being the worst offensive tackle with a 14.3 pressure rate in the entire NFL. Tannehill was the second most sacked quarterback. They got to get better on the offensive line. And I think that's priority number one. It ain't receiver. It ain't defense. It is this offensive line. If you believe Ryan Tannehill is your quarterback, help him out. Get him some protection. Even if he's not your quarterback, get the quarterback some protection. And so I did have Bernard Raymond going here in mock draft 2.0, but I don't believe it's going to happen this time, because Bernard Raymond is a prospect. He's a project, and you have to take quite a bit of time with Bernard Raymond to mold him into a consistent right or left tackle, because he has very little experience at the position. So I think what'll happen is the Titans will prefer a guy that's played tackle for most of his life, and they'll get Tyler Smith out of Tulsa. Just a tone setter. He reminds me of Taylor Lewan, like with his attitude and personality, and he'll flatten you in the run game. Sometimes he's too quick with his hands, and sometimes he's too slow with his hands, so which means he's inconsistent with his hands. He's raw, but it's not like he stinks, right? It's just you need to get the basics down. He's that kind of player that'll, you hit my quarterback, I'm going after you. He's that kind of player. Like, you want to put hands on my quarterback, I'm going to sling you across the field. He's that kind of guy. which results in penalties. But if you can, reel in that anger and direct that towards better technique in terms of blocking, I think he's a franchise tackle at left or right. He's going to be good if you can get the basics down. So the Tennessee Titans are going to select Tyler Smith. So the Buccaneers are going to be on the clock here, and they are actually going to trade out of this pick just because looking at the things that are on the board, I'm not seeing where Todd Bowles is going to be like, okay, we have to pounce on that, right? Not at 27. I think he feels like we can still get our guy by moving back, and Cincinnati is looking at Tyler Linderbaum, and they're saying, well, can we wait till 31 to get him? It looks like you can, but someone could jump up and get Tyler Linderbaum. And so that's why a lot of teams will trade up. You may see a team that may be at like 16 and they jump up to 14 or to 13. Well, it's not because you're scared that team's going to take your player. You're scared someone's going to trade with that team to get your player. And that's why you give up the capital to go up and get that specific player, right? You don't wait for the player to fall to you. You go get them. And so we're actually going to move this pick here. And ironically, Cincinnati wants to trade. I don't even have to force it. So we're going to give 31 and 95 to Tampa Bay for 27, right? And so we're going to jump up as the Cincinnati Bengals. We're going to select Tyler Linderbaum, center out of the University of Iowa. I get that the measurables are not there, but he might be the greatest center prospect I've ever watched. Like, literally, ever. The footwork consistent, the hands consistent, the power consistent, pass blocking, run blocking, second level, just getting hands on 3 different defenders. Just, if he had longer arms and weighed a little bit more, he would be a top 15 pick. But he's going to be a great pro, in my opinion. You do still have Ted Karras, though, so flex him out the left guard, put Linderbaum at center, and you completely retooled your offensive line. You acquired Lyle Collins as well. I guarantee you Joe Burrow won't be the most sacked quarterback this time. I guarantee you. So at pick 28, someone's making their mock draft debut. It is going to be Kyler Gordon. So usually Buffalo would go Andrew Booth Jr. in my mocks, but with the hernia surgeries and the countless injuries in the past, I believe he falls out of the first round. Kyler Gordon jumps in. Plays man, plays zone. Super athletic, loose hips, solid tackler. He's a very good player. So for me, I think Daxton Hill is more of a nickel, personally. He's more of like a safety, but I think he can come down and play nickel consistently. Okay, so I don't like Jalen Petrie. I think Jalen Petrie should be ranked like in the 60s, not in the 30s, personally. I just don't think he's a good player. And then Kyer Elam, he has no ball skills. I tweeted a video Kyer Elam a couple months ago as I was watching corners. I said he'll make a bunch of money if he could just look at the football. I can't tell you how many times the ball is coming right at him and it's like his eyes cross and he can't find the ball. It goes right over his head. Easy pick 6. He gets those hands on those footballs. He's going to make a lot of money in the NFL, but I think it's going to happen in the second round for him. So Kyler Gordon is going to be the pick here. He's such a good player. It's crazy. It's crazy how he's not really talked about in the first round, but for me, I feel like he's a first round player. So at pick 29, it's going to be the Kansas City Chiefs. And they hit on Nick Bolton last year, but I still believe they need a linebacker. Get you a rangy player who can fill space and is a sure tackler, a team captain, quarterback of the defense. If you pair this player up with Nick Bolton, I think you could have the best linebacking core in the entire NFL. And so with this pick, the Kansas City Chiefs are going to actually select Devin Lloyd, linebacker out of Utah. I know I gave them to Kobe Dean last time, and it was only because Devin Lloyd was gone. But Devin Lloyd is a better player than Kobe Dean. He's better behind the line of scrimmage. He's taller. He's heavier. He can go sideline to sideline. He doesn't get blocked off the screen. He's a better player. And I know that people enjoy Kobe Dean because Kobe Dean's small and he's fast and he runs and he's like a missile. Okay, but the better player, the better prospect, the more refined player is Devin Lloyd. And it's not even close in my opinion. And that's why you look at a lot of mock drafts from people that you like and you don't see Kobe Dean because he's not that good of a player. I don't believe he's a first round player. I just don't. He'll probably go to the Lions maybe at 32 or at the top of the second round, but I do not believe he's a first round football player. I just don't. I watched it much like I did with Trevon Walker. I watched more games of these Georgia players than I did of anybody else because I did not see it. I saw, okay, when you put them all together as a collective, everyone's good when they do their own part, but I didn't see a dominant edge rusher from Trevon Walker. I didn't see a dominant run stopper from Jordan Davis. I saw a 2-down player who ate up space. I didn't see a dominant linebacker in Kobe Dean. I saw somebody who just ran really fast, and it was small. But when you put them all together, they win a national championship. But when you break them each down individually, I don't believe that they're that good. That's just my opinion. Everybody has one. So at pick 30, the Kansas City Chiefs are on the clock again. And usually, I would, try to look at receiver here, preferably Sky Moore or Christian Watson. I believe Christian Watson could go here if he would just stop dropping the football. That's it. Just stop dropping the football. You'll be fine. He'll be a good pro. I think he'll be a good pro. But Kansas City's actually going to trade this pick. So they're actually going to trade this pick to the Washington Commanders because the Commanders are desperate for a quarterback and they're going to come up to get one. So they're going to give up 47, 113, 240, and a fourth rounder next year for pick 30. I only have to force it because the trade's fair. This trade, by the way, all these trades that I make are based off of previous accurate trades. So this trade is actually based off of the trade where Minnesota came back into the first round in 2013 to take Cordell Patterson, and they gave up similar value for the same amount of picks, for the same amount of space between the picks. So it's a 17 spot gap for this particular one, and so I try to keep the trades as accurate as possible, and I believe that this is going to be an accurate trade here. So the Commanders are going to offer the trade to Kansas City. Kansas City is going to accept it, and they are going to actually come up to select Desmond Ritter. I still think Desmond Ritter is a better player than Matt Corral. Matt Corral is exciting. He's fun to watch, but Desmond Ritter he's not a day one starter, but I see the traits. Needs to be a little bit more accurate, but he has an arm. He'll fire the ball at the receiver in the blink of an eye. A little bit of mobility as well. I think he's going to be best off play action or RPOs with a run game. Hello, Antonio Gibson. And so what you're going to do with that is you're going to pair, because I hope Carson Wentz plays all 17 games, but it is Carson Wentz. Okay. So you're going to be pairing Desmond Ritter at some point this season up with Antonio Gibson, Logan Thomas, Terry McLaurin, and Jamison Williams. You have a good offense now. It's going to be fun. And so I think that Desmond Ritter is going to be the pick to the Commanders. So at pick 31, the Bucks are actually going to stick and they're going to take Lewis Cine, the safety, out of Georgia. Now, Lewis Cine is the only player that I watched at Georgia where I was like, hey, he's really good. Like him and Quay Walker, I was like, they're really good players. And everybody makes excuses for the Georgia players. Well, they rotate the defense. I don't care. Lewis Cine, good player. Quay Walker, good player. Everybody else, good in the system. That's just me. But Lewis Cine will hit you hard. Had a little bit of experience at center field, playing center field safety, but I love him going downhill and just hitting people, covering these tight ends. I think he's a perfect replacement for a guy like Jordan Whitehead. The Bucks did end up acquiring Logan Ryan. Come on, that's not stopping you from doing anything. So Lewis Cine is going to slide into that secondary in Buffalo, and they're going to thrive. He's going to have fun playing beside Antoine Winfield Jr. So at pick 32, the final pick of the mock draft 3.0, the finale, the first round, the Detroit Lions are going to take a quarterback, and they're actually going to take Sam Howell. And as I said in 2.0, Jared Goff was not a bad player last year, contrary to what most of y'all think. He almost completed 70% of his passes, which was a career best, 67.2 to be exact. The Lions lost a lot of close games. QB really isn't their problem, but it also isn't an asset either, right? Because 19 TDs to 8 interceptions really ain't winning games. But Goff does have a cap hit of $31 million, $30 million, and $31 million over the next 3 years. If the Lions cut him, they get $20 million back. So on their cap. So we know what's going to happen after the season coming up. So as I said in 2.0, Sam Howell is a steady passer who keeps his eyes down the field. He does pat the ball though a little bit when he's about to throw. That'll get it knocked out in the NFL. Stop doing that. You'll be fine. He takes care of the ball. Holds it a little bit too long. Will get sacked. But he does bring athleticism to the table and great contact balance. Meaning when he runs and you try to hit him, he'll bounce off and keep going. It's the strangest thing I've ever seen with a quarterback. Like he runs and it looks like he's a linebacker running. Like I've seen corners will try to get him. He'll just shake him off, keep going. 15 more yards. Like it's nothing. It's crazy. But he lost a lot of his weapons at Carolina during his last season, and things didn't really look that good at Carolina after that. But as for him, I still believe he's going to go in the first round. I think that teams are just going to be big on these fifth-year options, and like they've always been. So we're going to go ahead and select him, and they're going to do our draft here. It's going to show us all our picks, but that's going to actually conclude the mock draft 3.0. It's going to be the final first round mock as we prepare for the NFL draft tonight. And so I hope you guys enjoyed the mock. Make sure you guys enjoy the draft tonight. It's going to be fun. I'm going to be live tweeting it as well on my Twitter. It's me, Jace _. We're going to have some fun. See how many I got right. But I'm so excited. Like I said, for us draft nerds, this is like our Christmas. And let's go. It's NFL draft season. I appreciate y'all for watching. Make sure you hit that like button, that subscribe button. Turn the notification bell on, because in the off season of draft season, we're going to talk about 2023. We're going to have some fun going throughout the summer. And so I appreciate everything that you guys do to subscribe and like the videos and watch the videos. I do appreciate that support. So I'm going to wrap it up here. Make sure you guys enjoy the draft tonight, and y'all be good.